Hello, everyone. My name is Miles Rando. I'm here with another video. This time, this video is talking about the cheat code. What is the cheat code? The cheat code on how to get into cyber security, how to land that six-figure career that you're dreaming about. Let me start by telling you my story. So, when I graduated from high school in 2003, I really didn't have a plan at all. I went to this technical school called Buller Havens. I did took up a trade, electronics, but I wasn't actively doing my trade. Like I wasn't doing it on the job. While I was in high school, I was working at KFC still. So that's a pretty interesting story. I did work at KFC for a couple of months. And in 2001, I did land a job at Bridgeport Hospital. And that job was doing dietary aide. So my job consists of washing dishes. This job called being a trucker. A trucker is when you deliver food to the patients. That was a pretty neat job, and also serving hot and cold food and having to know diets as a dietary aide. So having to know the patient's diet, making sure they're getting the proper meal, whether it was a renal diet or regular diet. So that was pretty interesting. I ended up doing that job as a dietary aide at Bridgeport Hospital for 2 years. Now, that job is what you would call a service job. It is not necessarily a skill job, but it is still rewarding work. So by 2003, I ended up going full time at the hospital and getting a job at the cath lab, which is also called cardiology. And my job was called, it was a PCS aide, now that I'm remembering it. So my job consisted of uh, cleaning patient beds, transporting patients from the cath lab to angio, stuff like that. But also, as a part of my job, I kind of like added some other stuff to my job to get myself noticed a little bit more. So I was doing the inventory. So I was putting away the stents, all like the cardiology supplies. So any cardiology supply you name, I knew the name of it, whether it was the certain IV bags. I don't know the name of it now. I haven't did the shop in a long time. So IV bags, it's anything you can name, I did that, but that still was a service level job. But with that job, it was pretty interesting because I got to work alongside of doctors, nurses, X-ray techs, and surgical techs. Now, the job itself that I was doing, although it wasn't a technical job, it did have its challenges because now I'm working alongside all these other professionals who actually have what you would call a career, and they have skilled jobs where they have to have a certain license, a degree, whatever have you, in order to get that job. So working alongside them, it made me a little timid because I'm here, I'm transporting patients, but I'm like, wow, they're in that room, they're getting all gowned up and they're going in for the procedures. And my job is after the procedure, clean up, or before the procedure, help set the room up. So whether that's to clean the beds or make sure that the supply rooms are stocked, so that way the nurses, the X-ray techs, the surgical techs, the doctors, they have what they need in order to serve the patients. So that part of the career was rewarding, but it taught me a lot because at that time I was like really young and I was asking these questions, like even to the surgical tech. I said, "Hey, Mr. Surgical Tech, how do you become a surgical tech? You have a clinical ladder? Like, what is that? Oh, you are a surgical tech level 3." I was like, wow. And I'm just looking and I'm looking like so amazed. And it was just mind boggling, but at the same time, it taught me a lot about not being comfortable. When I was working that job, I ended up getting really comfortable. I did, after 2 years, end up getting another job in the hospital working on the night shift. And that job it was similar. I think it was a PCS aide sort of too, but it was working a night shift. And that job, it was a little different because they had me doing a lot of stuff at nights. They had me cleaning patients' rooms. Once again, this is a service level job. I was transporting patients. I was also getting supplies for every unit in the hospital. Now, that was my main role. So from floors 3 to 10, all the way from the ER to the 10th floor, my job was to go and get supplies. And, they needed these supplies, whether it was IV bags, Benadine boots. Nurses, you're going to know what that is. Benadine boots are B boots for short. And, whenever there was like a code, my responsibility was to bring that dreaded red card to the patient's room because you never want to see a patient cold. Even though I'm not in there in the action, I am still playing a part in helping that patient, as far as life safety. So that was pretty interesting. So from 2005 up into 2010, I was working the night shift, and night shift can be brutal. So I ended up getting this job for the city of Milford, Connecticut as a custodian. So I was so ecstatic when I got that job. The pay was $17.10. I will never forget that pay because I was like, wow, this pay is more than what I'm making at the hospital. Mind you, I was at the hospital for 8 years or 9 years or whatever have you at this time. And my salary is going to jump from $15 and some change up to $17. And when I got into the city of Milford, the starting salary was $17.10. But they gave us like a salary bump because it was I forgot what the reason I think it was because of a merit increase. So I was making $18 within 3 or 4 months, and I was ecstatic. I was like, okay, I'm making more money now. And I'm thinking, okay, this job is amazing because you have a pension, right? So when you're thinking about a job, you want to be able to have a pension, $18 an hour, in 2010, you know, I'm thinking, okay, I'm doing better than I was before. So during that time as a custodian, part of my job was to strip and wax floors, which I necessarily wasn't good at, but I did enough to keep my job. And I really wanted the job. I wanted to have it. And part of our responsibilities as custodians, where we had to go to different buildings, we had to go to the library, the police station, city hall. So I'm rubbing elbows with the mayor. I'm rubbing elbows with the chief of police. I'm getting to meet these people, the librarian, the library director. So all these different people I'm interacting with, and I'm responsible for making sure the buildings are clean. That part when it came to maintaining the buildings, I did a pretty good job at that. And I kind of like had a little secret because when it comes to like custodian, they kind of give you like these smelly chemicals that leave stains on the toilet, like triad. Like it was like this green goo that left like rings around the toilet and on the toilet, but it does work. And the thing is with triad, you have to let it sit for a whole 10 minutes. I was like, wow. It was almost like watching paint dry. And imagine working in like a busy police station where people are trying to run to the bathroom. But wait, you gotta wait 10 minutes. But sometimes I couldn't wait the 10 minutes because people are rushing. They're not, they don't care that it takes 10 minutes. They know that they need to get to this bathroom. And mind you, there's other bathrooms, but they want to go to that particular bathroom. So, I had to just wipe down the toilet real quick and then just leave for that moment and then come back and then do it again. But little things like that, it just made me wonder. Long story short, when during the time I was still a custodian, I was a custodian from 2010 up into 2018. I was pursuing IT certifications. I started off by getting my A plus certification in 2015. I got my A plus. The next year, I got my Network Plus, and then the year after that, which was 2017, I got my Security Plus. Because everybody tells you, oh, get the trifecta in CompTIA and you're going to be on top of the world. And that's all I would hear. And I'm like, okay, I'm ready. I got my trifecta. Nothing can stop me. But wait, I wasn't landing any jobs. Now, when it comes to certifications, people, even to this day in 2026, I see so many people, even on these social media forums on Facebook. Oh, I have my A plus certification. I have my Network Plus, and I have my Security Plus, and I can't land a cybersecurity job. They're not even talking about help desk. They don't forget help desk. I got a trifecta in CompTIA. I want to land a security job in cybersecurity because I deserve it. And I got 3 certifications with my name on it that says, you know what, I can do the job. Reality check. That is not true. Certifications alone will not help you land a job. Even when you do land the job with those certifications, you are going to come in there not knowing nothing. You need hands-on experience when it comes to doing cybersecurity because trust me, I know I had these certifications by the time I got into cybersecurity. I will touch on that in a moment, but continuing on with the story, after I got my 3 certifications, the trifecta, by 2017, I had my Security Plus, and I was trying to land an IT job. I was just applying. I was applying to so many jobs, and I just wasn't landing them. So finally, in 2018, I did manage to get an IT job, and it was working for a company called Honeywell, and it was doing technical support. Mind you, I didn't have any technical support experience when I got into Honeywell. And to make matters worse, the reason that myself and a couple of others got the job wasn't necessarily because I had the trifecta. It was because they were laying off the people in Minnesota who been doing it for years, had experience because they wanted to move operations to Connecticut. And they didn't want them from Minnesota. They didn't, they gave them a choice. You either come to Connecticut or you basically lose your job. So coming in the job was already nerve wracking because now they're training their replacement, which is me. But as these level 2s are training me, they're not really training me well. They're just kind of like giving me bits and pieces of information. And with this technical support job, it's life safety. It's dealing with fire alarm panels. You may think of a fire alarm panel that you see at a gym or if you see it at a facility and think, oh, it's just a fire alarm panel. But there is a lot of programming that happens within this fire alarm panel. As far as the wiring of that panel, there's a lot that goes into it. There's networking, there's security, there's the programming of the panel. There's actually software that can be used to program the panel. So it's just a lot that goes into it. So as I was learning the job working at Honeywell, there was a lot I had to learn. I had to learn how to multitask and do it well. I had to learn how to be able to talk, to speak in a professional manner to customers, while at the same time potentially wiring a circuit and electrocuting myself. But that is part of the job. Life safety. So you have to just keep these things in mind when it comes to where you're trying to go, what you're trying to do. The cheat code doesn't exist. It's about that grind and being able to do more. Always be curious. Like one of the things, the terms we use in cybersecurity is curious. We want you to be curious. Always be willing to go the distance. Don't just do the bare minimum. Always be willing to learn more. And in this particular job, working in technical support, I had to go the distance and be able to rev up because I knew that these folks from Minnesota, they were getting laid off. So I'm going in. I am doing everything I gotta do. I'm showing up to work every single day. I'm learning as much as I can. And you have to be able to show your supervisor I can actually speak intelligently on the phone. I have the technical acumen to be able to help these customers. Because at the same time, not only are you talking on the phone with these customers, you are also troubleshooting, potentially wiring a circuit at the same time. And you have to write your notes into Salesforce. So it's just like, okay, now you have to be able to write your notes to the point where it makes sense. So if somebody goes back and look at your notes, they can say, okay, Miles, he was able to help the customer effectively, efficiently, and he did the right things and he said the key words. He was respectful, he was courteous, he was kind, and he made that customer feel like, okay, I can confidently call technical support and get my problem solved. The problem is with a lot of people who are trying to get into the field, they want to get into cyber so fast. Slow down. Actually do help desk, do technical support. Do not run into this field because cybersecurity is much harder, especially if you are working in cyber doing a specialized skill. What do I mean by that? I work in DLP, data loss protection. So that is a specialty. I see a lot of people say, I want to run and get into cybersecurity, SOC analyst. That's my way in. But you know what? What you need to be doing is try to separate yourself from the crowd. Say to yourself, you know what? I want to get into networking. I want to get into DLP. I want to get into the cloud. But the way everything's happening now in the IT field, you just can't know one skill and be able to succeed. You have to know multiple skills. Like you have to know the cloud. You might have to know some blue teaming. You might have to know a little bit of red teaming, depending on the type of role you're doing, because if you stick to one thing, you may not make it, especially with the advances in AI. Speaking of AI, I've been for the last 20 days using not your standard AI with a chatbot, but I've been using agentic AI, Perplexity Computer. I've already built 3 apps. I built a stock app. I built a DLP app and I built a budgeting app. And I also created the callmemousy.com website. So that was pretty interesting. So instead of your standard AI, such as like Google Gemini, you actually have something that's actually an agent that works for you. It's like an agent in your back pocket. So I think as we continue to advance in AI, having those skills are going to be really important. And the thing is with AI, even if you're working with standard AI with a chatbot, you have to know how to prompt that AI correctly, because if you don't prompt that AI correctly, you may run into results that weren't desired by you. AI can be adversarial. AI can hallucinate. It can tell you something that's really not the case. And also with AI, knowing how to use AI is important. Knowing the different types of models. For example, Perplexity Pro, just a standard AI in Google Gemini. And with Perplexity Pro, they actually give you different models. So you can use Claude, you can use OpenAI, you can use the Gemini compared to some other AI ones. So with Perplexity Pro, you actually get different models. And using the right model does matter because they're going to give you different results. So knowing how to actually prompt the AI will help you and it'll go a long way. And for reference, I did take an AWS class. It was the AI certified practitioner, AI certified AI practitioner, AWS AI certified practitioner. I took that course back in February and I did pass that in 10 days. And it did teach me a lot. It is a foundational course in AWS, but it does teach you a lot. Do learn how to use Amazon Bedrock. You learn about AI models. So I think stuff like that, going the distance and combining those AI skills, cloud skills, learning DLP, blue team and red team. And I mean, IT is so broad, but when you're trying to get into IT, knowing what you're trying to accomplish and get into is so important. And I think that'll help you. But continuing my story with the Honeywell, I was working at Honeywell and I was doing a really good job. And they had contingency plans for me to be a trainer. A trainer is somebody who travels to different states and they show customers how to use the fire alarm panels, the proper procedures. Because we had different systems with the alarms. We had like Silent Night. We had trying to remember Gamewell. We had a couple of different systems and some was more complex than others. So just knowing how to do it and just being that SME and really helping those customers that did play a vital role in life safety and your success as well as their success. So I ended up working for Honeywell for a year and a half. But I knew I wanted more than just technical support. I actually wanted to get into cybersecurity at this point because my mind was just racing. I was continuing to get certifications. I got my CYSA from CompTIA, but I also was intrigued. I wanted to see how my life would look as a cybersecurity analyst. And that finally happened in 2019. But I took a different route. I actually went for a cybersecurity analyst role through a contracting company called Kelly Services. So with Kelly Services, you have that contract, but they didn't give you any duration of the contract. It was supposed to be like 2 or 3 years, but they didn't say that. It was no, they didn't say anything. They just said, you know what? You do not get benefits from this company for a whole up to a year. I think I had to wait like 11 months in order to be able to get the Kelly Services benefits. And that alone would make somebody say, no, this is not for me because now I had to get the Connecticut sponsored insurance, which was much higher than the Kelly Services benefits. But I still wanted to get into cybersecurity, so I did that. But there was another issue. In the job description, it said you need a bachelor's degree. I didn't have a bachelor's degree. I still applied for the role. At first, they said, Miles, you do not have a bachelor's degree, so we can't hire you for this. And then I said, I have certifications. Thank you for your time. Have a nice day now. Next day, she called me back, the recruiter. She was like, Miles, you have certifications. You have some IT experience. You know what? We're going to give you an interview for this role. I ended up interviewing with the folks at UTC because before UTC merged with Raytheon, they were UTC. So I had an interview with the hiring manager and some other folks in the SOC, and it was a cybersecurity fusion center. And I am grateful to this day to be able to have done that role because it taught me a lot about how to protect a network, how to manage over 250,000 assets. So being able to know that information, getting feeds from the FBI, learning about different SIEM systems, using multiple SIEM systems, using a sandbox, how to analyze malware, how to escalate properly, just little things like that. And just being aware. I think that's one of the most important things when you're like a SOC analyst and you're getting into the field, because a lot of times when you're new, you might be scared to do an alert. Like when I started, I was always curious. I wasn't perfect, but I always was curious because I would see like other SOC analysts, if they saw like a certain alert in the SIM, they wouldn't want to touch it, or a certain email, because we had like a SOC inbox where we had to answer different emails. But for me, it was a good experience. Granted, I wish I was full time in the company at the time when it became Raytheon, because I would have got paid more. But I did those 2 years and I was able to do my, what they call it, 10,000 hours. I did my 10,000 hours, I felt, in IT to become something greater than I was before. So I think I will always remember that and always look back on it and be like, wow, like I really put in the time and I did it. But I'll stop right there. There is more to my cybersecurity story, but for now, just remember there is no cheat code. You have to grind. You have to grind hard, and you always have to be curious in order to make it. Have a nice day now.